Good evening, everyone. My name is Eileen Cipriani. I'm the President of Council here in West Wyoming. Tonight we're holding an informational meeting to discuss the proposed gas compressor station that's slated for West Wyoming. Lillian Harris, Matt Walker will be here from the Clean Air Council, and he's going to present information regarding potential issues from the compressor station. And Lillian Harris will speak on behalf of UGI Energy Services to present information regarding the gas compressor, its makeup, and safeguards. I just want to reiterate that tonight that this is not a decision-making meeting. It's strictly for informational purposes. At this time, UGI Energy Services has submitted a request for an air quality permit to the State Department of Environmental Protection. West Wyoming Borough, Phyllis Monday, and Senator Udicak have all submitted written requests to DEP asking for a public meeting before they render a decision on the permit. DEP spokesperson Colleen Conley told me today that DEP is seriously considering holding a hearing, but as of this time, no hearing has been set. We anticipate shortly that UGI will submit a request for a permit for construction of the compressor station and the pipeline. Again, DEP will review and issue the permit. A zoning permit will also be required. Location of the project is not in a residential area in West Wyoming. It can only be accessed by Fire Cut Road via Carverton Road in Kingston Township. West Wyoming does not control its own zoning. Luzerne County controls our zoning and has controlled our zoning for a number of years now. So the permit will be issued at the county level for this project. West Wyoming has requested in writing that the county hold a public zoning hearing prior to issuing any permits. West Wyoming Borough Council has no decision-making authority in this matter. We brought together tonight the 2 points of view on the project to allow our residents to become informed about the project. Borough Council's role, as we see it, is to advocate on behalf of our residents that the project is done in a manner that the safety, now and long term, of our residents and the environment is maintained, and every safety measure possible is put in place to ensure that. So if I could call upon Ms. Harris to come up and start their presentation. What we're going to have is they'll do a half-hour, roughly, presentation, and at the end of her presentation, if then you have any questions for her, feel free to ask. After that, then Mr. Harris will do, Mr. Walker will do his presentation for a half hour, and then you could ask questions of him.
Good evening, everybody. As Eileen told you, I'm Lillian Harris from UGI. I want to thank the borough, first of all, for having us up here to talk about this important project. We also want to thank the coalition for inviting us to this session. We think it's an important one. Most importantly, I want to thank the residents for coming out tonight to hear some good information about this project that we think brings many benefits to your community and to the communities surrounding this area. We've prepared a pretty thorough presentation. I think it'll give you answers to some questions you might have about the project. And I'm open at the end of the slide presentation to your questions, so if you can hold them till then, that would be helpful. I do have some other folks here from UGI this evening that I may source. If you have a question that I'm not familiar with the answer to, I may ask them to, in fact, answer your questions. So feel free to ask them when I'm concluded with the slide presentation. What you see in front of you right now is a picture of a compressor station that UGI Energy Services recently built, and it's located in Susquehanna County, just north of here, and it's a really, really fine example of the good work that UGI Energy Services does in your local community, where we also live and work, to build good projects to the benefit of the residents around here. I want to go to the next slide and tell you a little bit about UGI. I won't spend a lot of time on this. I think you might be familiar with UGI as your gas provider. We have a really long, rich history in Pennsylvania. We have a variety of families in the company. We're incorporated in Pennsylvania. We've been here since 1882. Our mission is to provide safe and reliable, reasonable service to our customers, whatever that service may be. We're one of the oldest and largest natural gas holding companies in the state, and we have 12,000 miles of gas main throughout the state, whether it be small or larger main. We serve a variety of retail markets. We have a vast portfolio of assets. UGI Energy Services is what's known as a midstream asset company. We own storage facilities, gathering facilities, and other types of facilities of the kind that we'll be building or propose to be building in your community. We have about several thousand employees over the Commonwealth, and we have about 800 of those employees right here in the Wyoming Valley. So again, we live and serve customers here right in the community where we're proposing to do this work. We're also putting Pennsylvania folks to work. We have 3 different engineering firms that are based in Pennsylvania working on the design and construction and planning and operation for this project. Those, Quad 3 comes to mind. CH2M Hill is another and Wilbros is another. The slide you see up here now gives you an overview, and it's a little bit hard to read, so I'm going to tell you based on colors what that is showing to you. The lighter blue that you see on the west part of the state and sort of arcing up over is what's known as the Marcellus Shale play in Pennsylvania. It's a rich resource of previously inaccessible natural gas, and I'm sure you've read a lot about it. But that's what you see in the light blue. The darker blue areas that you see shaded in are the UGI Utilities service territory footprint across the Commonwealth. We serve a lot of places extensively. And the yellow territory up here is the electric service division of UGI Electric. Pay attention to this next slide as you see it come up because it has a little bit of animation. And you'll see it begins down in the Gulf in Texas and it moves way up here to where we are in eastern Pennsylvania. It's illustrating to you the distance that gas would be traveling in order to reach your burner tip from the Gulf. This is the historical way, the old way of getting gas to you. And we're proposing a different way to get gas to you, which is a shorter haul. It translates for customers into reduced cost, reduced transportation fees associated with moving the gas to the market. The old way we suggest is not that efficient. You're moving that gas 1,800 miles. You're traveling through 11 states. You're using a lot of facilities to get that gas right here. I just showed you previously the Marcellus Shale play and the other production that's going on around us. It's plentiful, but bringing supply to your market in a more efficient, shorter haul way will be beneficial to many of us, businesses, residents, the people that live in this community. We think that this project is going to be able to achieve 20 to 25% reduction on the transportation costs that used to be, the historical costs. We can bring that down by about 20 to 25%. So that in turn translates to lower gas bills for the folks we serve. Our project concept for this particular project we're talking about tonight, we started with a short leg that came down, as you see on this slide, from the green pipeline going across that's called Tennessee Gas Pipeline, and we built a short orange pipe there called Auburn to bring it down into the Wyoming Valley. That provided a direct connection to a variety of supply sources for us. Again, getting that short haul down into this area. It shows an existing line that's in place now. The project goal, which is on the next slide, is to extend that line from where that orange line ends all the way down into the Wilkes-Barre area. And that's down here where you see the green, the light green. It's hard to see a little bit, but that's the distribution service territory and pipes of UGI Utilities down the Wilkes-Barre area. And what we're trying to achieve is to connect the Auburn existing line down into the Wilkes-Barre area to provide the advantages that I described before. It takes a ton of planning. It takes a lot of design work and construction and operation, but it takes a lot of planning. And we're in that stage right now. If you can go to the next slide, please. We're undertaking a lot of work, and we began it about a year ago when we started to talk to the municipalities in this area about how our work would least impact the folks here sitting in this room and in these communities to try to find a minimally invasive way to achieve the goal. So we've been working a long time, but we're still in the early stages, if you will, of this project. We're taking into account landowner concerns, we're taking into account route concerns. So there have been adjustments made on the good feedback we've received from the municipalities and from some landowners to try to make adjustments to accommodate interests and to accommodate your concerns that you've voiced to us. And we're continuing to do that. The most important thing, I think, though, is to provide accurate information to you. So because it's in the preliminary stages, we'll keep the lines of communication open with you and try to be as transparent as we can about this project going forward so that you have a better understanding of what our plans are and how it might impact you. The next slide talks about the compressor station. Eileen spoke about the compressor station that we filed for an air quality permit in West Wyoming borough. It is in fact located in a very remote location, and that was purposeful. We wanted to select that location because of the minimal disruption to the community. We have, I know the slide disappeared, but I'm going to continue to go on. I can tell you that the closest home to the compressor station site is approximately half a mile. So there's no residences that are right around our proposed location for the compressor station. I can also tell you that we've taken into consideration the sound impact that we believe will be negligible and well within sound standards that are imposed upon facilities of this nature. We were thinking that it might be best to try to illustrate to you that issue rather than me talking about it, us actually filming the facility you saw on the first slide, which is our compressor station up in Susquehanna County, and show you, give you a view of what the sound really is like. So if Ken can cue the video, and if you folks can listen, I think you'll observe that the sound inside the facility is far different than the sound outside the facility.
Today is May 23rd. We're here at the UGI's Auburn Compressor Station on State Route 267. As you can see, we're about 250 feet away from the compressor station right now. You can not even hear the station running, and you can see there's no visible emissions. Just to pan around and show you how close we are to neighbors' houses. Here's another view of the station from on top of the hill. Here we are about halfway down the hill. As you can tell, really the only audible noise is the truck that just came in, parked right in front of the station. Here we are about 15 feet right outside the station. As you can see, there's just a slight hum to everything. Again, the truck in the background is making some noise. We're going to go in here in a second, and as you can see, there'll be four compressors running. Here we are inside the station now. You can hear it very loud inside. The building that we use does an excellent job. We are back outside. You can tell a huge difference between inside and outside just standing 5 feet from the building. We are at the top of the hill again, and like I said, all four compressors are running. The station is flowing at capacity, and you can tell it's very quiet up here at the top of the hill. As you can see, as I zoom in, there's no visible emissions coming out of the stack. And that's UGI's Auburn Compressor Station.
Okay, so I think that was very helpful for you to have a picture of what the kind of facility is that we're proposing to build. He talked a little bit about, in addition to the sound impact, he talked a little bit about visibility of emissions there at the end, if you paid attention to that. Emissions are something, of course, that UGI Energy Services in their operation of this facility will regularly monitor. We believe that this facility is going to be clean or cleaner than is required by the most stringent federal requirements. We're seeking to exceed those federal requirements, and that's how we do business. We have a legacy of also continuously reducing our emissions footprint here. And what I mean by that is that we're in the business, as I reminded you, of midstream facilities, and Some of the great projects we get to work on are conversions of coal plants, like the Hunlock facility. We recently converted the Hunlock power plant from use of coal, which is a far dirtier burning fuel and far less efficient fuel than natural gas. So we were able to convert that facility and have that be a great success for that community. We also have worked very hard to install tens of millions of dollars worth of renewable energy facilities. So we as a company are reducing our overall emissions footprint in many ways. This compressor station will be one of those efforts to exceed standards. Could I have the next slide, please? I talked a little bit before about the translation of building this project into the pockets of the folks in these communities. And this slide is meant to try to illustrate that to you. You might have read in the news the significant drops in gas costs on customers' bills as a result of natural gas prices dropping. There are two parts to that cost on your bill, if you will. There's the gas itself, which is the commodity charge, and then there's the transportation component of that natural gas charge that's built into that number, that bogey that they send to you. And what I said before is we're trying to reduce the transportation part of that, and those dollars, UGI never makes any money on the purchase gas cost provision of your bill. It's a direct pass-through. Whatever we pay, you pay. So if we can reduce the cost by, in fact, reducing the haul and therefore having lower transportation costs, that is a significant benefit. We see other benefits as well. It's going to increase diversification of supply in the area. That always helps. If you've got more games in town in terms of supply, it should help to maintain gas prices at the low levels they're at now. We also know that this project will create jobs. It's going to create jobs in the construction phase. It's already created jobs in the design and planning stage. As I said, we have 3 different engineering firms working on that, but more jobs will be created throughout the process, the design planning, the building, the operation of the facility, and that's a good thing for your local economy as well. Services purchased during those folks being in the area. Also, your restaurants, your hotels, and whatever other facilities they're using also will be a benefit to the area. Next slide, please. Safety. I'm going to circle back around to this a couple times because UGI's been around a long time. Safety is very at the top of our list. That's how we have to operate. We work in a business where safety has to be of significant concern to us. I'm going to talk about the compressor station safety in particular here, but in general I want you to know that UGI has safety in mind all the time. We do a lot of training. We focus on it. You'll see I repeated that the project is approximately half a mile from the nearest residence. That's because not only for all the reasons of sound and emissions, but it's also it's a safety issue. So we've cited it where we think is ideal for this project. The design and construction standards, it's built to more stringent transmission line standards, and then talking about the piece of pipe that comes down to the compressor station and the one that departs from it. They're going to be built to standards that are more stringent than we would have to comply with. We simply would have to comply with a lesser standard for a gathering facility, but instead we're choosing to take on the higher standards for transmission facilities. We've got really experienced engineers, and they're going to assure that the facility is going to meet the most stringent safety standards. We're going to have a local operator in the area who's there on call. This facility is going to be constructed with the most current hazard detection and safety equipment that can be installed, and it's going to be monitored on a 24/7 basis. Training, obviously, we train our folks. We take special care to train them in the safety and emergency standards that they need to know to operate a facility of this nature. And the emergency planning coordination with local fire and EMS has to be part of the picture, and we've undertaken that already, and we will continue to do so throughout the construction phase as well as the operation phase. And as I said before, UGI focuses on safety. We're constantly looking for ways to improve our processes and maintain our levels of high standards within our organizations. Next slide. You're probably wondering what the schedule for the project looks like. This gives you a good snapshot of that, and I'm sorry if you can't read that very well, and I'll repeat it to you. The spring and summer of 2012, which we're in right now, we're beginning to submit requests for permits. The air quality permit was the first one that you saw, and that's why we're here this evening to talk about the compressor station. There are other permits that we'll have to acquire as a matter of course, and we'll begin to do so. Summer of 2012, we'll begin to order some equipment for the project because we need necessary lead time to do so. We anticipate spring of next year would be the time we'd begin construction. That's the best time to begin construction facilities mostly anywhere, but particularly in this project, we think that's a good time frame to shoot for. And we're hopeful that we could get the project in service by the late summer of 2013, in August perhaps. We've got local folks working on the project that we think that was a very smart idea to bring the local engineers and the mechanical folks to work with us. They know best what's here and how to manage it. We continue to work with the local municipalities on zoning and other requirements that they have, and we'll continue to do so. We're developing a schedule for meeting with local leaders along the path of the project. The pipeline in total, what we showed you on the map a little while ago, it's about 28 to 30 miles, I think. But because we're making adjustments on route, that might change up a little bit. But that's roughly the length of the pipeline from the orange pipe that I showed you all the way down into Wilkes-Barre. So that's about the length. So we have a number of municipalities to go and talk to and meet with in the design and bringing this project to fruition. We'll hold additional meetings as necessary to talk to folks and gain the support for the project that we think it is worthy of. Next slide, please. The next steps we have are to conduct field surveys and get feedback from the agencies and the local governments, as I mentioned. We've got some permit applications we're going to file, and I continue to work with folks. I think this is a little bit repetitive of the prior slide, so we can move on. I'm going to recap the benefits for you that we see. Obviously, consumer savings from the lower transportation costs. Environmental benefits from reduced use of other fuels. And what I mean by this is we have approximately 500 customers in the PNG footprint, the utility footprint up here in this area, for folks that have converted their oil or electric heating source to natural gas. And we're getting extraordinary demand for conversions. We think that's a great thing. It's twofold. It's benefits to consumers in the form of what's, money not coming out of their pocket, but it's also an environmental benefit because of the reduced use of fuels that aren't as clean or efficiently burning. Electric, there's a ton of waste in the transmission of, the production and then transmission of electric before it ever hits your home. Natural gas is one of the most efficient fuels to use. Source to site burn on natural gas fuels is excellent in terms of efficiency. We also see benefits that will boost the local economy during construction. New opportunities for local business and residents, supplies, lodging, food that I mentioned. The issue of job creation in the area can't be understated. Increased supply options, I think I mentioned, were more paths to choose from will hopefully continue to maintain low cost for the gas we're supplying. We're going to build a state-of-the-art facility, and we're going to run it well. We're going to enhance the reliability of the facilities that we use to bring gas to your markets. It's a system that's operated by a well-known entity that's been in your community, will be in your community, and will run this facility as we feel is best to serve your community. This last slide is just an overview, again, of natural gas and the benefits that we see of it. The core values is what I'll repeat. It's safety and reliability, service to our customers, responsibility to you to do a good job. And I think UGI Services can proudly say that we do that now and that we will continue to do that to bring this project to fruition. If you have questions and concerns, we'll certainly listen to them this evening. But I do want to note to you that we do in fact have a website that we're putting up, and in fact it's live today, I believe, where you will be able to get this information and additional updates as we can provide them to you. And if you have questions, there's a form there that you can access a contact person that can get back to you with a question if you don't think of it this evening, or if one comes up during the course of our continuing work on the project. Thank you. Many questions. Who shall go first? I think I saw you first. Hello.
Yeah, I was wondering, of all the gas that's going to come down from the north through this compressor station and then out again, what percentage is going to stay in the state of Pennsylvania versus leave?
I don't think I can give you an exact percentage because it depends on use.
Well, it depends on your business plan. You're not just building this on a whim, I suspect.
Oh, I know. We do. One of the things that we talked about in the project considerations was we gauge the market. And one of the other things I said was the market for natural gas, at least in the residential and in the commercial and industrial sectors, is growing. People want gas in their house, they want it for their business, they want it to use for applications like combined heat and power in the small commercial or the industrial context, where they're taking and burning natural gas instead of another fuel, and then using the residual heat to heat their space. Applications like that are incredibly efficient and well served, and we are actually challenged at the utility side right now to meet the requests for conversions and increased use of natural gas. So the market is there.
Oh, I know the market is there. I want to know that the footprint of the disruption in the state versus how much of the gas stays in the state to benefit us as opposed to a windfall for UGI.
Remember I said, one thing I had said earlier is we don't really get a windfall from the sale of natural gas as a commodity. We buy natural gas, and then the utility, I'm speaking up here, we buy natural gas to supply it to some of our customers. Some of them buy their own. And all they then pay is a transportation charge to get it. That customer pays a transportation charge. But if you're a resident and you buy your gas and your transportation from the utility, there's no markup on the natural gas costs that are passed through to you, where the utility is doing the purchasing for you, essentially. So there isn't any windfall to be gained by the utility in that instance. The lower I can make the price for you, the better for you, but it isn't necessarily better for me, for the utility. But it is better for the community, and I think it will incent the community to expand the use of natural gas further, which is a good thing. Now, who wants to go next? Or Mike, did you have a comment?
Oh, no, I think this gentleman.
I'm sorry.
I had visited several compression sites with a FLIR gas finder camera. Mm-hmm. Now, in the video that you showed, you mentioned that there's no visible emissions. Mm-hmm. Yet, with the FLIR camera, you can clearly see that there are emissions, just they're not visible. Can you tell me what chemicals, what gases, VOCs, and what that means? What is being released by this facility?
This is the Auburn facility in Susquehanna that we showed.
Right.
I think one of our experts here, I'll defer that question to them.
You're asking what specifically is going to be emitted from the process?
Yes.
Typical byproducts of combustion being NOx, nitrous oxides, VOCs, carbon monoxide.
VOCs, what is
volatile
that?
Organic compounds.
Okay, and what would they be?
The constituents of natural gas, methane, ethane, and the minor components of
Benzene, would that be?
very, very small levels of benzene.
Toluene?
Very low levels again.
Formaldehyde?
Yes.
I want to add to the comment that Keith provided. Thank you, Keith, for that. That there are, of course, federal standards regarding the levels of those emissions, of those types of emissions categories. Can I call it that? Components, compounds.
Exactly.
And the emission standards are set up for a reason. It's and the federal government has them at certain levels. And as I said before, this facility meets those. Of course, when you saw in the pictures, what we're proposing to build also will meet or exceed those same requirements. We're certain of that.
I want to add there's also controls for VOCs on there. There's oxidation catalyst that reduces VOC emissions by over 60% from uncontrolled, and the VOC emission levels are half of what the federal limits are.
Do you have the best possible filtering controls that money can buy for this facility?
Yes, we do. We have state-of-the-art oxidation catalyst that is designed to provide the greatest reduction that we can get from the VOCs. In addition, this facility is required to do to do monitoring the visual camera you were talking about. Mm-hmm. We're required to do that once a year under the greenhouse gas rules to do an assessment of the whole facility to identify any potential areas where there's fugitive leaks that would be occurring and so they can be rectified.
That would be the very regular monitoring we mentioned earlier.
Exactly, that's part of the regular
I want to get to this gentleman because I keep passing him by.
Okay, this is going to be a three-part question. First one is, how many compressors are going to be at this site?
Okay.
What is the fuel that's going to be used to operate those compressors? And what is the air quality permit that you're applying for?
Okay, Mike, you want to take that?
Sure. There are 3 compressors. Thanks for the easy question. The fuel is strictly natural gas, so it's the same fuel that we're compressing. And we filed for an air plan approval. So this is not some of the general permits you've seen when you own gas. This is a full-blown plan approval where we did a fairly extensive BAT, that's the technology analysis, and we measured our facility, and this is from our facility, there's a whole host of other facilities that are either operating or planning to operate, and to assure that we are meeting the best emissions control technology.
Okay, so the idea of this permit application then is to show whoever the regulatory entity is that you were meeting or exceeding all of the requirements.
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
Thank you. The lady back here?
I want to apologize first, I wasn't here for all of it. The pipeline part of this activity, is that going to go through any wetlands?
I'm going to defer that to, who's the best person to address that, Kevin?
Yeah, I can answer that. There are, that's, as Eileen mentioned, as Lillian mentioned before, we've done extensive work to try to minimize the impacts to the environment for the whole pipeline. In certain cases, it's inevitable that we will cross wetlands. We've gone as far as we can to avoid crossing any wetlands whatsoever. In instances that we do, and at this point it's extremely minimal, there are requirements for us to mitigate that. And what that means is that we are required to create offsetting wetlands, basically, and it's at a 3-to-1 ratio. So for example, if we were to go through 1 acre of wetlands, we would then also create 3 more acres of wetlands as an offset for that. And we follow very stringent standards when we cross those to minimize the impacts.
Maybe another question to go with it. So we've had Chief going through up in Dallas where they went under the wetlands.
Correct.
And they got the bentonite in the wetlands. So you're saying you're not going to go underneath, you're just going to go right through them and create new ones? That's what you're saying? You're not going to use the same procedure as they did up there? Or
There's different methods you can use to cross wetlands, and it depends on basically the size of the wetland and the depth of it and that sort of thing. So you can drill underneath the wetland. In some cases you can do what you call dry crossing, where you, in a sense, if it's a river, for example, you can do a flume and dam procedure where you do a dry crossing if it's a river, for example. So when we go into permit, we'll basically present the DEP with both of those options, and there's some variations of that. And then it's really coordination between us and DEP for what is the preferred method to cross each wetland. So in some cases it may be that we would drill underneath. In some cases we would cross straight through that.
okay, so you actually don't know which way you're going to do it yet, then, is what you're saying?
That's correct. That's correct. Now we will, some of those based on the size, we know we're going to have to drill under, but
Do you use the same method as Chief does? You do the event tonight, you use the same thing?
we, the methods that are used for crossing are pretty well standard. I mean, there's obviously, different levels of care that can be taken, and I'm not here to speak on Chief's behalf. As we mentioned, we've taken quite a bit of time to get to the point we're at now in terms of routing it to minimize those impacts, and we'll also make sure that we use every method that we can to minimize any impacts of wetlands.
If I might, just to add something to what Kevin's question about the pipeline route. One of the slides, and you may have missed it, we mentioned, that maybe it was subtle, we mentioned permitting as a transmission line. One of the things that does, it brings in the conservation districts into the permitting approval process. So in addition to just DEP, let's say this was just gathering on, we're just following through the oil and gas group, we're actually going through the county conservation districts also. So a lot of these, not trying to be evasive, a lot of the details will be dependent on the consultation as we go through the process with not only DEP, but each of the conservation districts.
I understand they did that up there though, so, I mean, I'm not saying anything against.
Yeah, I can't speak to that.
Yes,
really
and they
don't know.
still got the 5 spills, so.
The gentleman right in front of her? You?
Yeah, you dare, as I understand, you dare not fly under 1,000 feet over the bridge, any kind of aircraft. Aircraft cannot fly under 1,000 feet over the rigs because of emissions. What are the qualifications for aircraft overflight of these zones?
I think the answer to that is that we don't anticipate having any rigs at the compressor station.
Are you saying the compressor station, sir?
I am indeed, yes.
Oh, the compressor station.
I'm not aware that there's any restriction.
Well, there is on the rigs.
Yeah, I don't know about, I'm not familiar with the rig side. I'm not aware of
Only
everything.
for methane and explosion, obviously.
Yeah, we're not venting methane from the compressor stations. I mean, I think we spoke to some of the, products that come
You're
up.
not aware of any restriction at all?
Other than, too close to the ground, yeah, I'm not aware of any restriction.
Wait, I don't know who to call on first. Here?
You mentioned that the federal government has laws concerning emissions to the air that these compressor stations will make, and you plan on exceeding them. It's my understanding that the natural gas industry is exempt from the Clean Air Act. Is that not true?
I know that we are subject to certain federal air quality standards, and I know Keith can speak more specifically to that.
The station is not exempt from the Clean Air Act. The station has to
The
follow new source performance standards and MAC standards from the federal government, along with all state regulations. We're not exempt from
So compressor stations aren't really.
I can't speak for
Can I clarify that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, actually,
Matt is a clear.
I'm Matt Walker with the Clean Air Council. Right now, currently, compressor stations over a certain amount of horsepower are the only thing that's regulated in the natural gas industry. Now, EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, just released a new set of rules that will be implemented over the next few years that will incorporate other types of sources that will be regulated. But currently, it is only compressor stations.
The lady in green?
I just want to clarify something now. The people locally, are they going to have cheaper gas because this is located closer to us? Because what you're saying is that transportation is the majority of the cost. So we're going to have actually, now I don't have the other, that was my second one, I'll stay with the first. So the local people, because they're closer to this, are going to have cheaper rates on gas? Is this what you're saying?
It is what I'm saying, because...
So they'll be cheaper than the rest of the state?
Well...
Or other places that don't have compressor stations?
There's two components to your purchase gas cost, and one of them is the actual commodity of an MCF of gas.
Right.
And the other piece of it is, it's called natural gas cost, and in that little box of natural gas cost, one part of it is the transportation to get it there. So what traditionally, in historical context, the utility would do is contract with the long-line pipelines to the Gulf and pay demand charges to rent space in the pipes, essentially. So you're renting space on a pipe that's much shorter, ergo
well, granted,
less cost.
But my point is, if this compressor station is here versus 150 miles from here, let's say, is it going to be cheaper for the people around this compressor station? No. Correct? You know what I'm saying? Is that amount of distance really going to impact the price of gas?
What I guess I would say is that shorter haul pipelines, wherever they're built, that bring gas from production to market, would benefit consumers.
Right.
That's what I would say.
Not just the consumers. Right.
Well, the consumers that are benefiting from the shorter haul.
I think the key here is the fact that we're directly connecting to the local utility market.
Right.
Right.
Whereas 50 miles away, if we're interconnecting into that interstate pipeline,
right,
we still have to pay those larger costs to ship the gas, even at a shorter distance. We still have to pay to rent that space on the pipe. So by directly connecting into the local utility market, we can actually replace that long line cost with the shorter haul cost.
So the local community will pay less than other places in the state that aren't as close.
Unless the other places do the same thing that we're proposing to do here and bring those transportation prices down.
I mean, gas is out low anyway, as I'm sure you all know.
Like the western part of the state, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but the western part of the state had the benefit before Marcellus came to be of the local, the shallow wells, the local production there, and the vast storage in salt dome storage out there that was in the area. So that benefited them. And if you looked at the comparison of purchase gas costs in the western part of the state versus the eastern part of the state that didn't have those nice things at their disposal, there's a difference. There's a much different cost of gas associated with the western part of the state and the eastern part of the state historically.
It's going to come here first. It's going to come to the consumers locally first, no matter what, is what you're saying. The gas coming through this compressor station will be used by us, and all of it will be used by whatever we need it for, per se.
I would say that you will see gas coming down into the UGI distribution system as a result of this project.
Right.
And that will benefit the consumers in the way we've described.
So it will benefit all your consumers, not necessarily just the people within the vicinity of the compressor station. And I just want to clarify that, because to me that wasn't very clear. My other question is, what about people in the vicinity, and I am one of them, who don't have access to natural gas? We don't have pipelines running to our homes. It's not an option for us. So, I mean, it's of no advantage to, I'm not very far from that station, very honestly.
But you don't have a gas distribution company
I have
that
no
provides
distribution. There's a number of people within the 2-mile radius, I'm going to guess, that, and probably more. But
well, I can't state a direct benefit associated with gas costs, but I can state a benefit to you in my view. If it were me and in your spot, I guess I'd have to look to a broader set of benefits in terms of the boost to the economy, the additional jobs that are created, and those types of benefits, which are good things. They may not be individual to certain folks who live far away from a gas distribution main, and that's a story for a different day and a discussion, and I hope that we can get it to more folks. But
exactly how many jobs is it going to take to run this facility once it's up, which will not be a long-term building by any means? I mean, how long does it take to construct and set up a compressor station?
Mike, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, the construction period, well, the development and engineering period will be about 9 months.
Okay, and that's just paper?
Well, that's job.
Right.
We support quite a bit of project.
But I'm just saying, it's not the
yeah, that's
actual.
correct, that's correct. The construction period is around 6-7 months for the study. And I'm going to say 50, 60, 70 people during
the construction. So 7 months, 50 people will have a job.
And then once it's built, we're going to have some operational people, maybe 5, 6 people.
Right, okay. So a long-term benefits of this are about 6 jobs.
Well, I would add to
I mean, I just want to clarify. I'm not trying to dismiss. I just, you know, this is what we hear. We heard, not necessarily from you, but from the gas.
One thing I would add is,
and that's not to be laughed at. I mean, 6 jobs at this day and age is 6 jobs. But let's keep it in perspective.
I guess if you want to talk specifically with regard to the folks working there, that is the answer. But if you look broader than that in terms of the supply chain jobs, first of all, the engineering jobs already, the jobs that we have folks working on the project, those are jobs, and they're in Pennsylvania. So that's one, this end of it, and the construction, and then the sustained jobs for the folks running it. But then there's also jobs that you don't really think about so much that are at this end of it, where we're supplying natural gas. More folks ask for conversions, therefore more people work to achieve those conversions in the homes. More people work to achieve the combined heat and power at the commercial facility that wants to convert from coal to gas and those types of things. So there's a segment there you have to think about.
I mean, right now we're working with a real compressor station, real jobs. I really, not that I'm saying this is just untrue, but those are projections. We really don't know what's going to happen, honestly. I mean, something could come along that's cheaper, God forbid, wind power kicks in or whatever. I'm not calling you, but I really want to stay in the facts and clarity for this. That's just what I'm asking.
I think the differentiation is staying at the site or viewing it from the long-term benefits that are much broader, and if you expand the lens of the camera to really evaluate what the increased use of natural gas can do for jobs in Pennsylvania long-term. So that's what I would say, and I don't think we need to debate the issue. I think we're going to answer the question.
I'm not trying to dispute what you're saying. I'm just trying to make sure it's clear, because there's a lot of reaching, and it's not a big thing.
Ooh, it's nice. I think this gentleman with the blue hat, maybe.
We're all concerned over the fact of a company, a corporation. Okay, the goal of a corporation is to make money. Even though you're a utility, you do service us. And some of the questions we've heard tonight we've heard, oh, we're going to create 1 million jobs. Okay, we understand and we thank you for hiring local people. We thank you for the jobs, and we understand it will create a few more jobs. Okay, and yes, another 50 jobs or 100 jobs, that is fine. But the very first question of the evening was, where is all this gas going? If 1,000 cubic feet come in, because there's supposed to be, I don't know how many billions of trillions and quadrillion cubic feet of natural gas, okay? I don't know about you, but I don't burn that much in 1 year, okay? So one of the main questions was this morning, when that trillion cubic feet of gas comes down through your compressor station and gets fingered out and only a half a trillion is used, or a quarter of a trillion, where does the rest of it go? And is it the drilling company that makes the money, you that makes the money, or the people at the other end of the pipeline make the money? That's my first question. And I'd like to have someone answer that.
There's an excess of gas.
You can't produce it all at once. You can only produce the gas as fast as you can get it out of the wells and move it places. Having said that,
Yeah, get it.
there are several places it goes, not the least of which is storage in the summer to make sure we can give it to you at the same prices in the winter. To people's homes, to the businesses and whatnot, that's where it goes. I want to stay very factual on what we know versus predictions, but Kevin and Mike both, I think, have something to add.
Yeah, I think one of the things I can suggest is this pipeline has the ability to actually supply all of the Scranton Wilkes-Barre market. That approximately is just under half of the capacity of the project.
So it's not going to get past, none of it is, it's just going to go like, it's Scranton and stop.
It's Scranton. During seasons where the utility can consume it, we can supply that through this line. Now, this is a seasonal load, so we need the ability to take that gas when you're not consuming it on beautiful warm days like this, and to put it into the interstate system, either to put it into storage where it's packed away there until the winter time when you use it, or it would also have the ability to move to other markets throughout PA and throughout the other areas that the interstate pipeline serves.
In 1974, I live in Harding. We had a house explode, thank you UGI, for storing natural gas over in Ransom. We had flames shooting out of a well. My uncle was the fire chief. He had to run in the house, save one person, 3 people died. And that's from storing your gas.
There's risk involved.
Okay?
I can second
All
that.
right, but I just wanted to mention that.
Well, now Scranton looks
But-
good.
Yeah, you excuse me a second, just, we'd like to get Matt on.
Yes.
So if maybe we could hang on.
Just one more question.
One question. I own 150 acres in Exeter Township, which is going, and I am chairman of Keep Sutton Creek Clean Committee, where your pipeline is going to be crossing. We're monitoring it through Wilkes College. I would like to get a detailed map of exactly where any of this is going as a property owner and a taxpayer. How can I do that, and will you provide that, or is that something to be only given to the pleasure view, so to speak?
It looks fair and
It's
Scranton.
publicly available once we submit the permit.
Pardon?
It's publicly available once we submit the permit.
Okay.
Yep.
If Wilkes-Barre and Scranton are also going to benefit from this, why isn't it in an industrial site? Why aren't we putting this compressor station
Why
there?
are you splitting there?
The closest house is half a mile away,
Why not?
and which is located where? Firefighter. So the location from the compressor station to West Wyoming is how far?
Is it several miles?
It's about a half mile from Carverton south. It's about a half
The
mile.
closest house is in Kingston Township, correct?
Correct. The actual closest house is right on Firecut, just under half a mile away.
So it's more than, it's saying, it would be a mile or excess a mile from the closest. So it's actually, if the compressor was 100 feet the other way, it would be in Kingston Township, correct?
Correct, it's in the very corner.
And all the truck traffic that, we've been hearing a lot about truck traffic, that is going to access through Kingston Township, correct?
Correct. Correct.
So it would be, it's feasible to say that it's more than a mile away from the closest resident in West Wyoming.